The grand hall of Silvercrest gleamed with crystalline chandeliers and polished marble, but Thalia felt none of its warmth. She stood in the shadows behind a marble pillar, precisely where she'd learned to position herself over 8 long years, close enough to observe, far enough to remain invisible. "The queen looks radiant tonight," someone whispered nearby, and Thalia's stomach twisted. They weren't talking about her. They never did. Across the hall, draped in sapphire silk that matched her eyes, Lady Isadora laughed at something Alpha King Cassian said. His hand rested possessively on her waist, his expression warm in a way Thalia had seen exactly once, on their wedding night, before everything shattered. 8 years as his queen in name only. A lifetime of silence. Thalia's fingers traced the silver crown embedded in her dark hair, the only visible symbol of her title. Everything else about her had been designed to disappear. The muted gray gown, the way she kept her gaze lowered, the manner in which she'd perfected the art of becoming furniture in her own palace. Thalia. The voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. Marin, the pack's elder healer, materialized beside her with the unsettling quiet only ancient wolves possessed. "You shouldn't be here." "I'm queen," Thalia replied softly without inflection. "Where else would I be during the lunar gathering?" Marin's weathered hand gripped her wrist with surprising strength. "Child, I can smell it on you. The sickness is spreading faster than we thought." Thalia pulled away gently, her heart hammering. "Then we increase the herbs. The willow bark tea, the dash dash. No herb in this world can cure what's killing you." Marin's silver eyes blazed with frustration. "The bond rejection is eating you alive from the inside. You have weeks, perhaps days, before—" "Before what?" Thalia interrupted, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Before I finally fade away and free him to properly marry his true love? Maybe that would be best for everyone." "Don't say such things," Marin hissed, "and don't pretend you've accepted this fate. I've watched you night after night, channeling your forbidden gift into those boundary wards to protect this kingdom. You think I don't know? You think I haven't noticed the glow beneath your chamber door?" Thalia's blood turned to ice. "You can't tell anyone. If they discover what I am, if Cassian finds out that his rejected Omega Queen is a lunar witch?" Marin's expression softened. "That the woman he treats like a ghost is the only thing standing between Silvercrest and the shadow creatures from Ashbourne?" A commotion near the hall's entrance cut off Thalia's response. The massive oak doors burst open, and 3 palace guards dragged in a figure writhing in agony. Even from across the room, Thalia could see the black veins spreading across the man's skin, smell the acrid scent of shadow poison. The crowd gasped and recoiled. Lady Isadora pressed herself against Cassian, who immediately positioned himself between her and the contaminated guard. "Shadow creature attack at the eastern border," one of the guards reported, his voice shaking. "He took a direct hit protecting the patrol. The poison's spreading fast." Cassian's commanding voice rang out. "Get him to the healing ward. Summon every healer we have. If the shadow creatures have breached our borders, they'll all be dead before dawn," Marin whispered to Thalia. "Shadow poison can't be cured by conventional means. You know this." Thalia did know. She'd spent 8 years studying forbidden texts in her lonely tower room, learning to harness the gift she'd been taught to hide her entire life. The very gift that had made Cassian reject her on their wedding night when his wolf couldn't tolerate her scent. "You're wrong," he'd said, his golden eyes cold as winter. "The moon goddess made a mistake. You're not my mate. You're something else entirely." She'd never told him the truth, that she was a lunar witch, one of the last of her kind. She'd accepted his rejection in silence, agreed to remain his queen in name, only to prevent a political catastrophe, and spent 8 years protecting a kingdom that pretended she didn't exist. The poisoned guard's screams echoed through the hall. Thalia watched Cassian's jaw clench with helpless rage as healers surrounded the dying man. She watched Lady Isadora's face pale with fear. She watched the crowd begin to panic, whispering about shadow creature invasions and the failing of Silvercrest's ancient wards. They're failing because I'm dying, Thalia realized. The wards are tied to my life force. When I die, they all die. You have to save him, Marin urged quietly. You have to reveal yourself. If I use my power, Cassian will know what I am. He'll banish me, and the wards will collapse instantly. If you don't use your power, that man dies, and by tomorrow, shadow creatures will overrun this kingdom. Either way, your secret ends tonight. Thalia's gaze locked on the dying guard. Someone's son, someone's mate, someone who'd sacrificed himself for the kingdom that had made her invisible. Then her eyes drifted to Cassian, the man who'd rejected her so thoroughly that his wolf couldn't even sense her presence in a room anymore. 8 years of silence, 8 years of suffering. The guard's screams weakened to whimpers. Healers shook their heads in defeat. Lady Isadora buried her face in Cassian's chest. Thalia stepped out from behind her pillar. For the first time in 8 years, she stopped making herself small. The moment Thalia moved into the light, it was as if the shadows themselves recoiled. Heads turned. Conversations died. Even the dying guard's labored breathing seemed to quiet as every eye in the grand hall found her. "The Queen," someone whispered, the word rippling through the crowd like a stone dropped in still water. Cassian's head snapped toward her, his amber gaze widening in what looked like shock. As if he'd forgotten she existed, as if she were a ghost suddenly made flesh. "That's what I've been to you, isn't it?" Thalia thought bitterly. "A convenient ghost you married to satisfy the council." "Thalia!" His voice held a question, perhaps even confusion at her audacity to step forward. She didn't respond, couldn't. If she spoke to him now, her resolve would crumble. Instead, she walked toward the dying guard with measured steps, her gray gown whispering against marble. The crowd parted before her like a sea, their expressions ranging from curiosity to disdain. "Your Majesty," one of the healers stammered, "there's nothing to be done." "The shadow poison." "I know what it is," Thalia said quietly. Her voice, so rarely used in public, sounded foreign even to her own ears. "Move aside." "Thalia, what are you doing?" Cassian's command carried the weight of an alpha, but she'd grown immune to his authority over her. Rejection had severed that particular chain. She knelt beside the guard, pressing her hands to his chest where the black veins converged. His skin burned with unnatural heat, and his eyes, glazed with agony, focused on her face with desperate hope. "My queen," he gasped. "Please, my mate, tell her." "Shh," Thalia soothed. "You'll tell her yourself." She closed her eyes and reached deep within herself, to the place where moonlight lived in her veins. The place she'd kept locked away since the night Cassian's wolf had recoiled from her, unable to recognize her scent as mate. 8 years ago, everything had been different. Thalia had been 20 years old, orphaned and raised by a distant aunt who'd warned her to never reveal her gift. "Lunar witches are feared," Aunt Petra had said. "Wolves don't understand our magic. They'll see you as a threat, not a treasure." But when Cassian had walked into the mate-gathering ceremony, when his wolf-bright eyes had found hers across the crowded temple, Thalia had felt the bond snap into place with such intensity that she'd gasped. His wolf had called to something ancient in her blood, and for one perfect moment she'd believed the moon goddess had given her a miracle. The wedding had been magnificent. Cassian had looked at her like she was the answer to every prayer he'd never spoken. "My queen," he'd whispered against her hair in their private chambers. "My mate." And then he'd kissed her. The moment their lips touched, power had sparked between them, her lunar magic responding to his wolf with an intensity she couldn't contain. Silver radiance burst from her skin, illuminating the room like a full moon at midnight. Cassian jerked away, shock written across his face. Then his wolf surged forward, and she watched his expression transform from wonder to revulsion. "What are you?" His voice was barely human, caught between man and beast. "I'm your mate," she'd pleaded. "The bond." "Something's wrong. My wolf. He can't stand your scent. It's all wrong." He backed away from her as if she carried plague. "This isn't right. You're not what you seem." "Cassian, please, I can explain." "No." The word had been final, absolute. The moon goddess made a mistake. "You're not my true mate. You can't be." His beta, Ronin, burst in, and by morning, the entire pack knew their alpha had rejected his new queen. But there had been a problem: the political alliance. Thalia's bloodline, though impoverished, was ancient and respected. Breaking the bond completely would have caused scandal that could have led to war. So they'd made an arrangement. Thalia would remain queen in name only. In return, Cassian would seek out his true mate, whoever that might be. 6 months later, he'd met Lady Isadora at a diplomatic gathering. Thalia had watched from the shadows as her husband fell in love with another woman. Silver light blazed from Thalia's hands, flooding the grand hall with illumination that made the chandeliers look dim. Gasps echoed around her, but she focused only on the dying guard, on the shadow poison that was devouring him from within. Moonlight against darkness, life against death. She'd done this before, secretly, when shadow creatures had breached the borders. She'd healed wounded warriors from her tower window, channeling power through the wards she'd woven around Silvercrest. But never in public. Never where Cassian could see. The black veins began to recede beneath her touch, drawn out by silver radiance that seemed to pull the poison from the guard's body like venom from a wound. His agonized whimpers faded to relieved gasps. Color returned to his skin. Thalia felt the familiar drain of energy, the way her forbidden gift consumed her life force with each use. Marin was right. The bond rejection was killing her. Every time she used her power, it hastened the process. But watching the guard's eyes clear, hearing his grateful sob as the pain vanished, she couldn't regret it. When she finally opened her eyes and lifted her hands, the hall was silent. The guard lay still, breathing normally, the black veins completely gone. Healed. Impossible. Slowly, Thalia stood and turned to face the crowd. Every eye was fixed on her, wide with shock and wonder and fear. But her gaze found only one person. Cassian stood frozen, his burning gold eyes locked on her face. For the first time in 8 years, he was truly seeing her. And in his expression, she saw the recognition dawning. The terrible understanding of what she was. What she'd always been. "You're a lunar witch," he breathed. The accusation hung in the air like a sentence of death. The silence in the grand hall stretched like a blade between them. Thalia watched the emotions flicker across Cassian's face. Shock, betrayal, something that might have been fear. Behind him, Lady Isadora had gone pale, pressing herself against the Alpha King as if Thalia might attack at any moment. 8 years, Cassian said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You've lived in my palace, worn my crown, and you never thought to mention you're one of them?" One of them. The words landed like physical blows. Thalia had known how wolves viewed lunar witches, as abominations, as creatures who'd stolen magic that didn't belong to them, as threats to the natural order. But hearing the disgust in her own mate's voice made something inside her crack. Would it have mattered? She was surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. "You rejected me before you knew what I was. Your wolf found my scent repulsive, remember? At least now you have a reason for your revulsion." A low growl rumbled through the hall. Ronin, Cassian's beta, had moved to flank his alpha, his protective instincts obviously triggered. Other warriors began to shift positions subtly, creating a barrier between Thalia and their king. They think I'm dangerous, she realized. They think I might attack him. The dying guard, no longer dying, struggled to sit up, his voice hoarse but determined. My queen just saved my life. Whatever she is, she used her gift to heal me when no one else could. Shadow poison is incurable, one of the healers said shakily. Every text, every ancient record confirms it. The only way to draw it out is... The woman's eyes widened with sudden understanding. Lunar magic. Only lunar magic can counteract shadow corruption because they're opposing forces. Exactly, Marin said, stepping forward from the crowd. The ancient healer moved to stand beside Thalia, a show of solidarity that sent murmurs rippling through the gathered wolves. And before you all condemn your queen for the gift she was born with, perhaps you should ask yourselves why shadow creatures haven't overrun Silvercrest while breaching every other kingdom's borders. Cassian's eyes narrowed. What are you saying? I'm saying your ghost queen has been protecting this kingdom since the day she arrived. Marin's voice rang with authority that even an alpha couldn't dismiss. Every night, she reinforces the wards. Every time shadow creatures test our borders, it's her magic that holds them back. The barriers around Silvercrest aren't ancient wolf magic, Your Majesty. They're lunar witch spells, powered by the queen you rejected. The revelation sent shockwaves through the crowd. Thalia wanted to disappear, to retreat back into her comfortable invisibility, but Marin's hand on her shoulder kept her grounded. Is this true? Cassian took a step forward, and Thalia hated that her body still responded to his presence, still yearned for the mate bond that should have been. You've been maintaining the wards? Someone had to, Thalia said quietly. The old wards were failing. I could feel it the moment I arrived. Without reinforcement, shadow creatures would have invaded within months. Why? The question came from Lady Isadora, who'd found her voice despite her obvious fear. Why would you protect a kingdom whose king rejected you? Thalia's laugh was bitter. Because innocent people live here, because children sleep safely because of those wards. Because the alternative is watching everyone die just to spite a man who couldn't love me. Something flashed in Cassian's eyes. Pain, perhaps, or regret. But it was gone before Thalia could identify it. If you're so powerful, Ronan challenged, his tone skeptical, why hide it? Why pretend to be weak and helpless? Because lunar witches are hunted, Morin answered when Thalia remained silent. Because the last great witch purge was only 50 years ago. Because revealing herself meant risking execution, and she couldn't protect Silvercrest if she was dead. A commotion at the hall's entrance cut through the tension. A scout burst through the doors, his face ashen, his clothes torn and bloodied. Alpha King! The scout gasped, falling to his knees. The eastern border. The wards just collapsed. Shadow creatures are pouring through by the dozens. We need to evacuate. The floor beneath Thalia's feet tilted. The wards had collapsed. Her wards. Which meant ... You're dying. Cassian's voice held a strange quality, his wolf-bright stare suddenly sharp on her face. Marin said weeks or days. The wards were tied to your life force, weren't they? Thalia wanted to lie, to deny it. But what was the point now? The bond rejection is killing me. My magic has been keeping me alive longer than should be possible, but it's failing. When I die, the wards die with me. When you die, Cassian repeated, and something in his expression shifted. You knew this would happen. You knew protecting Silvercrest was literally killing you, and you did it anyway. What was the alternative? Thalia's voice cracked. Let everyone suffer because you couldn't love me? Let shadow creatures slaughter innocents because my gift frightened you? Another scout burst in. The western border is breached. Shadow creatures heading straight for the capital. Panic erupted in the hall. Nobles screamed. Warriors drew weapons. Cassian immediately began shouting orders, organizing evacuation protocols and defense formations. But Thalia could see the truth in his eyes. They didn't have enough time. The capital would be overrun within hours. Unless she did something drastic. Thalia closed her eyes and reached for the core of her power, the place where moonlight pooled in her soul. She'd been rationing her magic for months, trying to preserve what little life force she had left. But there was no point in preservation if everyone died tonight. "What are you doing?" Marin's hand gripped her arm. "Child, no. If you channel that much power in your condition—" "I'm already dying," Thalia said simply. "At least this way, I die protecting something that matters." She raised her hands, and silver fire exploded from her body with such intensity that every wolf in the hall had to shield their eyes. Power poured out of her in cascading waves, racing through the palace, through the city, through the kingdom itself. She felt her consciousness expand, stretching to touch every inch of Silvercrest's borders. The wards blazed back to life, stronger than ever. Shadow creatures shrieked as lunar magic burned them to ash. The breaches sealed, one after another, until the kingdom was wrapped in a barrier of pure silver radiance, and Thalia felt her life force draining away like water through cupped hands. Her knees buckled. Strong arms caught her before she hit the marble floor. Through dimming vision, she saw Cassian's face above her, his amber eyes wide with something that looked almost like anguish. "Don't you dare die," he growled, his voice breaking. "Thalia, don't you dare—" But darkness was already pulling her under, gentle and inexorable. Her last thought before consciousness fled was that at least Silvercrest would be safe. At least she'd saved them. Even if she couldn't save herself. Thalia woke to the scent of moonflower and sage, Marin's healing herbs. Her eyelids felt heavy as iron, but she forced them open to find herself in unfamiliar surroundings. This wasn't her tower room with its sparse furnishings and single window. This chamber was vast, with vaulted ceilings and walls draped in deep crimson silk. The Alpha King's personal healing suite. She'd never been inside it before. Pain lanced through her with each shallow breath. She felt hollowed out, as if someone had scraped away everything vital and left only an empty shell. "You're awake." The voice came from the shadows near the door. Ronan stepped into the dim lamplight, his arms crossed over his chest. "The healers said you'd sleep for days after what you did." Thalia tried to sit up, but her body felt like it belonged to someone else, distant and unresponsive. "How long?" "2 days." Ronan moved closer, studying her with an expression she couldn't read. "The kingdom is secure. Your wards are holding. Shadow creatures haven't attempted another breach since you collapsed." "Since I nearly killed myself," Thalia thought. She could feel the emptiness inside her, the vast hollow where her magic reserves should be. She'd burned through almost everything to restore the wards. What little remained flickered weakly, barely enough to keep her heart beating. "Where's Cassian?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Ronan's jaw tightened. "The Alpha King has been occupied with matters of state." Lady Isadora was quite shaken by the attack. He's been comforting her. Of course he has. Thalia closed her eyes against the familiar sting of rejection. Even after she'd saved the kingdom, even after revealing the truth, Cassian still chose Isadora. Some things never changed. "There's something you should know," Ronan said, his tone shifting to something more guarded. "There's been talk. About you. About what you are." "Let me guess," Thalia said bitterly. "They want me executed for being a lunar witch?" "Some do," Ronan admitted, "but others remember that you saved the Eastern Border Patrol, that you've been protecting Silvercrest. The kingdom is divided." The door opened before Thalia could respond. A woman swept in, her silver hair braided with black pearls, her presence commanding immediate attention. Thalia recognized her instantly, Lady Senna, the kingdom's head diplomat, and one of Cassian's most trusted advisors. Your Majesty, Senna's voice dripped with false warmth. How wonderful to see you recovering. We were all so worried. Thalia had never trusted Senna. The woman had always been polite to her face, but Thalia had seen the calculation in her eyes, heard the whispered conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. Lady Senna, Thalia acknowledged carefully, I'm told the kingdom is secure. For now. Senna settled gracefully into the chair beside the bed, dismissing Ronan with a wave. The beta hesitated, his instincts clearly warning him, but royal protocol demanded he obey a direct dismissal from a high-ranking noble. He left, though his backwards glance at Thalia spoke of reluctance. The moment the door closed, Senna's warm expression vanished. Let's dispense with pleasantries, shall we? We both know you're dying. The bond rejection has progressed too far. Even your impressive magic can't save you now. Thalia's heart stuttered. Why are you telling me this? Because you were never supposed to survive. The wolfsbane should have made the rejection permanent. You should have faded into obscurity or left entirely. Senna's eyes glittered with malice. Instead, you clung on like a stubborn weed, maintaining those insufferable wards, making yourself indispensable. Do you have any idea how much you've complicated things? Ice flooded Thalia's veins. What plans? Senna leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Some kingdoms value alliances over magic. Some diplomats understand that sacrifices must be made. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. The beauty is, no one will ever believe you if you try to expose me. You're the witch everyone already fears. I'm the trusted advisor. Who do you think they'll side with? You poisoned me, Thalia breathed. The wolfsbane in my wedding wine. You did it. Clever girl. Senna's smile widened. Though by the time you piece together the full scope of what I've orchestrated, you'll be far too dead to do anything about it. Before Thalia could respond, Senna produced a vial from her pocket, dark glass containing something that glinted silver. I've been collecting samples of your magic for months. With a few alterations, it would be remarkably easy to make it look like you've been practicing blood magic. Dark necromancy. The council wouldn't even hold a trial. You're bluffing, Thalia said, though fear twisted her stomach. Am I? Senna stood, smoothing her gown. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to die quietly, probably within the week. I'll ensure Cassian remembers you fondly, perhaps even builds a memorial. And then he'll marry Isadora, forge the alliance I've been carefully orchestrating, and everyone lives happily ever after. She paused at the door. Well, everyone except you, of course. Why? Thalia whispered. Why do all this? Because power, true power, comes from controlling kings, not being one. Senna's expression was almost pitying. You actually believed in sacrifice, in duty, in protecting people who hate you. How pathetically noble. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a death knell. Thalia lay in the vast bed, trembling with fury and despair. 8 years. Everything she'd sacrificed, everything she'd endured. It had all been orchestrated by someone who saw her as nothing more than an obstacle to be removed. She'd saved everyone and damned herself in the process. The door opened again and Thalia tensed, expecting Senna's return. But it was Cassian who entered, moving with the quiet grace of an alpha in his own territory. He'd changed from his formal court attire into simple dark clothing that made his eyes seem even brighter. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Then Cassian spoke, his voice rough with an emotion Thalia couldn't name. Why didn't you tell me what you were? Of all the things he could have said, all the questions he might have asked, this one hurt the most. Would it have mattered? Your wolf rejected me before you knew the truth. My wolf? Cassian moved closer, and Thalia saw exhaustion carved into his features. I've been going through the old texts, researching lunar witches and bond rejections. Do you know what I found? Thalia shook her head, not trusting her voice. True mates, genuine moon goddess chosen pairs, can't reject each other. The bond is unbreakable by nature. If a rejection occurs, it means something interfered. Something corrupted the recognition. His hands clenched into fists. Someone poisoned me, poisoned us, made my wolf unable to recognize your scent as mate. So he'd figured it out. Senna, Thalia whispered. Cassian's head snapped toward her. You know, she was just here. She admitted to the wolfsbane. She's been planning this for years. The poisoning, the manipulation. Thalia's voice broke. She even threatened to frame me for dark magic if I expose her. The growl that rumbled from Cassian's chest was pure alpha rage. She threatened you? It doesn't matter. Thalia turned her face away. I'm dying anyway. She wins regardless. No. The word came out fierce and absolute. Cassian reached for her hand, his touch sending electricity through her depleted body. Thalia, look at me. She couldn't. Wouldn't. Because if she looked at him, she'd see pity or duty or worse. Nothing at all. Just the same indifference she'd endured for so long. I said, look at me. His fingers found her chin, gently turning her face toward his. Please. The raw plea in his voice broke something inside her. She met his eyes and saw emotion she'd never witnessed before. Anguish, regret, and something that looked dangerously like longing. I was wrong, Cassian said, each word sounding like it cost him. I rejected you based on a lie. I treated you like you were invisible while you protected my kingdom. I let another woman occupy the place that should have been yours. And now you're dying because the bond rejection is killing you, and it's all my fault. It's Senna's fault, Thalia corrected weakly. It's my fault for not questioning it. For not fighting harder to understand what I was feeling. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. My wolf never stopped calling for you. He's been restless, angry, incomplete. I thought it was because I'd rejected my true mate and was forcing myself to love someone else. I never realized you were my true mate, and someone had poisoned us both. Thalia's breath caught. Cassian. Let me fix this, he said urgently. Let me complete the bond. If we... It's too late. The words tasted like ash. Even if we completed the bond now, I'm too far gone. The rejection has been active too long. My magic is depleted. I have days, maybe hours. Then we have days to find another way. Cassian's grip tightened on her hand. I'm not losing you. Not after I finally understand what I lost. The door slammed open. Ronan stood in the entrance, his face pale. Alpha. Lady Senna just left the palace with an armed escort. She's heading for the Ashbourne border. Cassian released Thalia's hand and stood, every inch the warrior king. She's running. Or she's calling for reinforcements, Thalia said, struggling to sit up despite the pain. If she reaches Ashbourne, tells them I've exposed her and that the wards are failing, they'll attack. Then we stop her. Cassian headed for the door, then paused. He looked back at Thalia with an expression that made her heart ache. Don't die while I'm gone. That's an order from your alpha. I'm not part of your pack, Thalia reminded him. The rejection was a lie. You've been mine from the moment the moon goddess chose us. I was just too blind to see it. He returned to her bedside, bent down, and pressed a kiss to her forehead that burned like a brand. Fight, Thalia. Fight to stay alive. Because I'm coming back for you. and we're fixing this. That's a promise." He left before she could respond, Ronan following close behind. The room felt suddenly empty without his presence, and for the first time in 8 years, Thalia realized that emptiness went both ways. He'd felt incomplete too. They'd both been dying all along. Marin appeared within minutes of Cassian's departure, her expression grim. "I felt your distress from across the palace." "What happened?" Thalia told her everything: Senna's confession, the Wolfsbane revelation, the threat of false evidence, Cassian's sudden shift in behavior. By the time she finished, the elder healer was shaking with rage. "That manipulative serpent," Marin hissed. 8 years. She stole 8 years from you both." "It doesn't matter now," Thalia said wearily. "Even if Cassian stops her, even if he wants to complete the bond, my body can't survive it. The rejection has progressed too far. There might be one option." Marin sat on the bed's edge, her weathered hands clasping Thalia's. "It's dangerous, possibly lethal, but it's all we have." "Tell me." "The bond rejection is killing you because your body is trying to sever a connection that can't be severed. It's like trying to tear out your own heart. Impossible and fatal." Marin's silver eyes held hers. "But if you willingly accepted the bond, if you surrendered to it completely, your body would stop fighting. The connection would stabilize." "That's what completing the bond means." "But you said I'm too weak." "I said your body is too weak for the energy surge that comes with the traditional mating bond completion, the claiming mark, the soul merge, the power exchange. It would destroy you in your current state." Marin squeezed her hands. "But there's an older ritual. One that transfers life force gradually, over several days. It's gentler, safer for someone in your condition." "My grandmother was a lunar witch," Marin added quietly. "She taught me the old ways before she died. I've been waiting decades to pass this knowledge to someone who needed it." Hope flickered in Thalia's chest. "What does it require?" "Cassian's complete cooperation. His willingness to bind himself to you in every way, body, soul, and magic. He'll be sustaining you with his own life force while your body heals enough to accept the full bond." Marin hesitated. "And you need to survive long enough for him to return." As if summoned by the words, Thalia's body convulsed. Pain exploded through her chest, a familiar agony she'd been experiencing for months, but stronger now. Her magic flickered and nearly died like a candle in a storm. "Not yet," Marin commanded, her hands glowing with pale, healing light. "Child, you fight. Your alpha is coming back. Don't you dare leave before he arrives." The pain subsided to a dull ache. Thalia gasped for air, tasting blood. "How long do I have?" "Hours. Perhaps less if there's another attack." Marin's expression was stark. "Your magic is the only thing keeping your heart beating. When it fails completely, you die." A commotion in the hallway drew their attention. Raised voices, the clash of steel, then the door burst open. Not Cassian returning, but a young wolf Thalia recognized as one of the palace guards. "Queen Thalia," he panted, blood streaming from a cut on his forehead. "Shadow creatures, dozens of them. They've breached the inner wards." Impossible. Thalia's wards should have held for weeks, even in her weakened state. Unless... "Senna," she breathed. "She found a way to corrupt them before she fled." "The creatures are heading straight for the palace," the guard continued. "We're evacuating the nobles to the underground sanctuary, but there are too many civilians still in the city. They'll be slaughtered if we can't hold the palace gates." Marin gripped Thalia's shoulder. "Don't even think about it. If you channel magic now, you'll die. If I don't, hundreds die." Thalia pushed herself out of bed, ignoring how her legs trembled. "Where's Cassian?" "The Alpha King pursued Lady Senna to the border," the guard said. "He hasn't returned." So she was alone. The kingdom was under attack. The wards were compromised, and the only person who could stop the shadow creatures was dying. Perfect. Thalia reached for the gray dress someone had laid out for her, but Marin stopped her. If you're going to do this, you'll do it properly. The healer opened a wardrobe and pulled out a gown Thalia had never seen, deep midnight blue, embroidered with silver moons, with a fitted bodice and flowing skirts that looked designed for movement. What is this? Your true queen's dress. I commissioned it years ago, hoping someday you'd have reason to wear it. Marin helped her change, moving with efficient speed. If you're going to save this kingdom again, you'll do it looking like the monarch you are. The dress fit perfectly, and when Thalia caught her reflection in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked regal, powerful, like someone worth fighting for. One more thing. Marin fastened a silver circlet around Thalia's head, not the ornate crown she wore for ceremonies, but something simpler and older. This belonged to the last lunar witch queen of the ancient times. It will help channel your magic more efficiently. Waste less energy. Thalia touched the cool metal, feeling the whisper of old power within it. Where did you get this? I've been holding on to it for the right person. Marin's eyes glistened. I always knew you were meant for more than shadows and silence. They made their way through the palace corridors, the guard leading while Marin supported Thalia's weakening body. They could hear the sounds of battle growing closer. Snarls, screams, the clash of weapons against shadow creatures' corrupted forms. When they reached the grand balcony overlooking the palace courtyard, Thalia saw the full scope of the attack. Shadow creatures poured through breaches in the inner wards, twisted, smoke-like beings with glowing red eyes and claws that dripped corruption. Palace guards fought desperately, but they were overwhelmed. And there, in the center of the courtyard, Thalia saw her. A small figure with dark curls, backed against a fountain, surrounded by 3 shadow creatures. Lyric, the daughter of one of the palace servants. The child couldn't have been more than 7 years old, her face streaked with tears as the creatures closed in. No, Thalia breathed. Thalia, wait. Marin reached for her, but Thalia was already moving. She climbed onto the balcony railing and jumped. Silver light pulsed from her body as she fell, not the violent explosion from before, but a controlled shimmer. The ground rushed up, and then something caught her. Not her own magic. Something golden, warm, fierce. Through the haze of pain and exhaustion, Thalia felt it, a golden thread connecting her to Cassian. Not the full mate bond, not yet, but something. A tether, a lifeline. She could feel his alpha energy in the distance, could sense him racing back toward the palace. He was keeping her alive through sheer force of will. Using that borrowed strength, Thalia landed in a crouch between Lyric and the shadow creatures. The creatures recoiled from her light, shrieking. Thalia stood slowly, drawing on Cassian's power through their fragile connection. You will not touch her, Thalia said, her voice resonating with magic. The creatures attacked as one. Thalia threw up a shield of silver radiance, holding them back even as she felt the strain on Cassian through their link. Behind her, Lyric whimpered. Close your eyes, sweetheart, Thalia said gently, and cover your ears. The child obeyed. Thalia dropped the shield and released a focused burst of power. Not everything she had, but enough. Silver light washed over the courtyard, incinerating the shadow creatures that threatened Lyric while leaving the guards untouched. When the light faded, the immediate area was clear, but Thalia could feel more creatures pressing against the wards, and she had nothing left. Her knees hit the ground hard. Small arms wrapped around her neck. Lyric, crying, saying thank you over and over. Thalia tried to hug her back, but her arms wouldn't respond. Queen Thalia! The shout came from the palace entrance. Ronan was running toward her, his face panicked. And behind him, Cassian, Her mate burst into the courtyard like a storm-given form, his amber eyes finding her immediately. The expression on his face, raw terror and desperate love, was the last thing Thalia saw clearly. Through their link, she felt him pour everything he had into her. His alpha energy flooded the connection, restarting her failing heart, forcing her lungs to draw breath. But it wasn't enough. Her magic had finally failed completely. She felt herself falling, heard Cassian's anguished roar as he caught her. His arms came around her, cradling her against his chest as if he could hold her to life through will alone. "Don't leave me," he whispered fiercely against her hair. "Thalia, please, don't leave me." And then there was nothing but darkness and the distant sound of someone screaming her name. Death was quieter than Thalia had imagined, peaceful even. She floated in darkness, feeling no pain for the first time in 8 years. The constant ache of rejection was gone. The burning drain of her depleted magic had ceased. There was only silence and a strange sense of weightlessness. Is this what it means to let go? She wondered. To finally stop fighting? But then, a voice. Distant at first, then growing stronger. "Don't you dare leave me." Cassian's voice, rough with desperation. "Thalia, I'm right here. Come back." She tried to tell him it was too late, that she'd given everything she had, but the words wouldn't form. She was too far away, drifting further with each passing moment. Through the haze of near death, Thalia felt something else. That golden thread connecting her to Cassian, the one she'd sensed in the courtyard. He'd been sustaining her somehow, even from a distance. Now she understood. The bond had been trying to form despite the rejection, reaching for her across the void. "Please." His voice broke. "I just found you. You can't leave now. We're supposed to fix this. You promised to fight." "I never promised anything," Thalia thought. "You ordered me not to die. But I'm not part of your pack, remember? I don't have to follow your orders." Except, that wasn't true anymore, was it? The moment he'd kissed her forehead, something had shifted. The dead bond had flickered with the faintest spark of life. Not enough to save her, but enough to make her feel the echo of what should have been. "Cassian." Another voice. Marin's. Urgent and commanding. "The ritual. We need to start it now, or she's lost." "She has no heartbeat," Cassian said, and Thalia felt his anguish like a physical blow. "How can I complete a bond with someone who's already gone?" "She's not dead." "Not yet. Her soul is still tethered to her body, but barely. If you can jumpstart her heart, restart the life force flow, the bond will sustain her long enough for the ritual." "How do I?" "You're an alpha. Your wolf has enough primal energy to restart a dying heart. But you have to be willing to give her everything. Not just your power, but your life force. If this doesn't work, you both die." Silence. Then, "Tell me what to do." Through the darkness, Thalia felt pressure on her chest, Cassian's hands positioned over her heart. Then came a surge of pure alpha energy, wild and fierce, flooding into her body. Her heart jerked. Beat once. Stopped. "Again," Marin commanded. Another surge. This time her heart caught the rhythm, beating weakly but consistently. Life rushed back into Thalia's body with agonizing intensity. The pain, the exhaustion, the constant battle for survival. "No," she wanted to say. "Let me go. Let me rest." But Cassian wasn't letting go. Cassian gathered her into his arms, his lips pressing against her forehead, her cheeks, her mouth. "Stay with me," he whispered against her skin. "Please, Thalia. Stay." His wolf rose to the surface, and suddenly she could feel the bond, broken and corrupted by 8 years of rejection, but still there. Still reaching for her. Still trying to connect. "The ritual requires 3 nights," Marin was explaining, her voice coming from somewhere nearby. Each night, you transfer a portion of your life force to her. Gradually rebuild what the rejection destroyed. By the third night, if she's strong enough, you complete the bond fully. 3 nights, Cassian repeated. What if she doesn't survive that long? Then she dies, and the bond takes you with her. That's the risk of binding yourself to someone this close to death. I don't care about the risk. Cassian's arms tightened around Thalia. Start the ritual. Thalia wanted to protest, to tell him he was being foolish. He should let her die and live his life with Isadora, form his political alliance, rule his kingdom in peace. But she couldn't form words, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but lie in his arms and feel his heartbeat against her cheek. Very well. Marin began chanting in the old language, words that predated modern wolf packs and civilized kingdoms. But Cassian, you should know, if this works, if she survives, you'll be bound to her forever. No second chances, no changing your mind. A life bond is absolute. Good, Cassian said fiercely. I don't want second chances. I want her. The chanting continued, building in power and resonance. Thalia felt Cassian's energy pouring into her, not the violent surge from before, but a steady stream, gentle and sustaining. It felt like sunlight after endless winter, like rain on parched earth. Her lungs expanded. She drew a full breath. She's breathing. Ronan's voice, filled with relief. It's working. But the energy transfer was taking its toll on Cassian. Thalia could feel him weakening, his own life force diminishing as he fed it to her. He was giving too much, too fast. Stop, she tried to say. You'll kill yourself. As if he heard her thoughts, Cassian's lips found her ear. I know what I'm doing, he murmured. I'm choosing you. Finally, after 8 years of stupidity, I'm choosing right. The first night of the ritual ended with Thalia's heart beating steadily, and Cassian collapsed beside her on the bed, his skin pale and his breathing labored. Marin immediately began working on him, forcing healing teas down his throat. You gave too much, the elder healer scolded. You were supposed to transfer gradually. She needed it, Cassian said weakly, and we're running out of time. Because Senna was still out there, because shadow creatures would attack again, because even if Thalia survived, the kingdom still faced threats from every side. The second night was worse. Thalia had regained enough strength to open her eyes, to see Cassian sitting beside her bed, his hand gripping hers. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his skin drawn tight over sharp bones. You look terrible, she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. His smile was radiant despite his haggard appearance. You're talking. That's progress. Cassian, you need to stop. This ritual is killing you. Then we'll die together. I'd rather have 3 days with you than a lifetime without you. That's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. Probably. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles with desperate tenderness. But I've wasted 8 years being an idiot. At least now I'm being an idiot for the right reasons. Thalia wanted to argue, but Marin arrived with her ritual components, and the chanting began again. This time, Thalia was conscious enough to feel the full impact of the energy transfer. Cassian's life force flowing into her like a river, bringing strength and warmth and something else. Something that felt suspiciously like love. When the second night ended, Cassian didn't collapse. He simply held her, his forehead resting against hers, both of them breathing in sync. One more night, he whispered. Can you make it one more night? Can you? Thalia countered. For you? Anything. The third night, Thalia was strong enough to sit up. Strong enough to see the true cost of what Cassian had done. He'd aged years in just 3 days, his vibrant energy diminished to a flicker. He'd given her nearly everything he had, Thalia could feel the bond solidifying between them, no longer just a lifeline, but something deeper. She could sense his emotions now, not just his physical state. His determination, his love, his absolute certainty that she was worth every sacrifice, and underneath it all, his wolf's constant presence, patient and protective, waiting for the moment they could fully merge. "This is the final transfer," Marin said, her expression grave. "After tonight, either the bond completes and you both survive, or it fails and you both die. There's no middle ground." "I understand," Cassian said. "Wait." Thalia found her voice, stronger now. "Before we do this, I need to know something. Why? Why are you doing this? Is it guilt? Duty? Because the moon goddess chose me?" Cassian cupped her face in his hands, his burning gold eyes intense despite his exhaustion. "I'm doing this because for 8 years my wolf has been howling for you." He took a shuddering breath. "Because I've been empty and angry and incomplete, and I couldn't understand why." "Cassian," Thalia tried to speak. "No, let me finish. Please." His thumb brushed her cheek. "You protected my kingdom when I ignored you. You saved lives while I betrayed everything we should have been. And I can't—" His voice broke. "I can't bear a world without you in it. I love you, Thalia. Desperately. Completely. With everything I am." Thalia's breath caught. "You love me. With everything I am." He pressed his forehead to hers. "So please, let me do this. Let me save you the way you've been saving everyone else." Tears spilled down Thalia's cheeks. 8 years. 8 years she'd waited to hear those words. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, Cassian. Complete the bond." Marin began the final chant. This time, the energy didn't just flow from Cassian to Thalia. It circled between them, building momentum, growing stronger. The corrupted rejection bond shattered like glass. And in its place, something new formed. Something bright and perfect and unbreakable. Cassian leaned in, and when their lips met, the world exploded into light. And then Thalia felt him. Not just Cassian the man, but his wolf. The wild, primal essence that had called to her from the very beginning, now fully accessible through their bond. His wolf pressed against her consciousness, whining with relief and joy, nuzzling her soul with desperate affection. Finally, they were whole. The bond snapped into place like a key turning in a lock, and suddenly Thalia could feel everything. Cassian's exhaustion, his fierce determination, his overwhelming love. It all flooded through the connection between them. And beneath it all, she felt his wolf, finally at peace after 8 years of torment. But the moment of triumph shattered when Ronan burst through the door, his face ashen. "Alpha, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation." The beta's eyes flickered between them. "It's Lady Isadora. She's gone." Cassian's arms tightened around Thalia. "What do you mean, gone?" "She left a note. She's gone to join Senna at the Ashbourne border." Ronan's jaw clenched. "It appears Lady Isadora has been working with Senna all along. The note says that by dawn, Ashbourne forces will march on Silvercrest, and without Queen Thalia's wards at full strength, we'll be defenseless," Thalia finished, trying to push herself up. The bond had restored some of her strength, but she was far from healed. "How long do we have?" 4 hours until dawn. Maybe 5. Ronan looked at Cassian with barely concealed worry. "Alpha, you can barely stand. You've given too much of yourself." "I'm fine," Cassian cut him off. Though Thalia sensed through their connection that he was lying, he was depleted, running on sheer willpower. "Gather the warriors. We march to intercept them before they reach the capital." "Cassian, no." Thalia grabbed his arm. You're in no condition to fight. Let me restore the wards first. Once they're at full strength, Ashbourne won't be able to breach them even with an army. You're in no condition either, he argued. The ritual saved your life, but you need time to fully recover. We don't have time. Thalia pulled herself to her feet, swaying slightly. She sensed his instinct to catch her, to protect her. If Ashbourne has the numbers Ronan suggests, we need every advantage. The wards are our best defense. Marin stepped forward, her expression troubled. The wards are tied to your life force, child. In your current state, channeling that much power could... Could what? Kill me? Thalia laughed bitterly. I was dead 3 days ago. Whatever happens now is borrowed time. She turned to Cassian, taking his face in her hands. I can feel you now. I know you want to protect me. But right now, protecting the kingdom means letting me do what I was born to do. His wolf-bright eyes searched hers. We just found each other. Then trust me not to leave you. She kissed him softly. I'm not the same dying queen you married. I'm your mate now. Your equal. Let me fight beside you. Something shifted in his expression. Acceptance mixed with pride. Together then. But I'm not letting you face this alone. I wouldn't have it any other way. They made their way to the highest tower of the palace, the lunar spire, where Thalia had spent countless nights maintaining the wards in secret. Now, with Cassian beside her and the bond blazing between them, she felt different, stronger. As if his alpha energy complemented her lunar magic in ways she'd never imagined. Dawn was still hours away, but Thalia could already see signs of the approaching army on the horizon. Torches flickering in the darkness, the distant sound of war drums. There are hundreds of them, Ronan said grimly, peering through a spyglass. Maybe thousands. This isn't just a raid. It's a full invasion. Thalia closed her eyes and reached for her magic. It responded sluggishly at first, still recovering. But then she felt Cassian's hand on her shoulder, felt his alpha energy flowing through the mate bond, offering support. Use me, he said quietly. Take what you need. Cassian, I can't. If I drain you, you won't. The bond goes both ways now. We sustain each other. His fingers laced through hers. Trust the bond, Thalia. Trust us. She did. Reaching deep, Thalia pulled on the connection between them and gasped as power flooded through her. Not just her own lunar magic, but something new. Something that blazed with the combined strength of witch and wolf, moon and sun, magic and primal energy. Silver light exploded from her hands, racing across the kingdom like lightning. The wards blazed to life, stronger than they'd ever been. Not just barriers now, but living walls of power that pulsed with the heartbeat of two bonded souls. On the horizon, the Ashbourne army faltered as the wards solidified. Thalia could sense their shock. It's working, Ronan breathed. The wards are holding them back. But Thalia felt something else through her expanded awareness, a corruption spreading through the magical barriers, dark tendrils of shadow magic, eating away at her wards from multiple points. They have shadow mages, she gasped, working in coordination to bring down the barriers. Can you counter them? Cassian asked. Not from here. I'd need to be at the breach points, and there are at least 6 of them scattered around the kingdom's perimeter. Thalia's mind raced. It would take me hours to reach each one, and by then... Then we divide our forces, Cassian said decisively. He turned to Ronan. Send our fastest riders to each breach point. Have them mark the locations with signal fires. Thalia and I will portal to each one. Portal? Thalia frowned. I don't have that kind of magic. You do now. Cassian's smile was fierce. Alpha wolves can traverse their territory instantly when properly motivated. It's instinct, not a spell. And now that we're bonded, your instinct becomes my magic, Thalia finished, understanding dawning. We can use the bond to move between locations. Exactly. We'll hit each breach point, eliminate the shadow mages, and reinforce the wards. He called out orders to the warriors below, his alpha authority ringing through every word. I want 6 teams ready to move. Ronan, you lead the main force toward the border. Keep Ashbourne occupied while we handle the mages. Within minutes, signal fires began appearing across the kingdom, 6 points of light marking where shadow magic was corrupting the wards. Thalia felt each breach like a wound in her flesh. Ready? Cassian asked, pulling her close. She nodded, and together they focused on the bond, on the connection that now made them one entity with 2 bodies. Reality twisted dash dash, and they were standing at the first breach point, a section of the eastern wall where 3 hooded figures chanted in harmony. Shadow magic poured from their hands, eating into Thalia's wards. The shadow mages spun toward them, shock evident even through their concealing hoods. They hadn't expected the queen and her alpha to arrive so quickly. Surrender, Cassian commanded, his voice carrying alpha compulsion. And you'll be shown mercy. In response, one of the mages hurled a bolt of shadow corruption directly at Thalia's heart. Cassian moved faster than thought, putting himself between her and the attack. The shadow bolt hit him square in the chest. His eyes flickered between amber and pure molten gold, man and wolf fighting the shadow corruption together. And Thalia felt his agony through the bond as corruption began spreading through his veins. No! Silver fire blazed from her hands, not just pushing back the mages but incinerating them where they stood. Her lunar magic, amplified by rage and fear, left nothing but ash. She fell to her knees beside Cassian, pressing her hands to his chest where the shadow corruption was spreading. "Don't you dare," she hissed. "Don't you dare leave me now." "Not planning on it," he gritted out, his face contorted with pain. "But that really hurts." Thalia poured healing magic into him, using the bond to burn away the shadow corruption. It resisted, fought back, but her determination was absolute. She'd just gotten him back. She refused to lose him to the same poison that had killed so many. The corruption retreated, then vanished. Cassian's breathing steadied. 5 more breach points, he said, struggling to his feet. We need to keep moving. You need to rest. No time. He pulled her up, and despite his obvious pain, his eyes blazed with determination. Together, remember? We finish this together. They portaled to the 2nd breach point, then the 3rd. Each time they found shadow mages working to corrupt the wards. Each time they fought together, his alpha strength and her lunar magic combining into something devastating and beautiful. By the 4th breach, the combination of portal magic and combat was taking its toll. The travel itself, merging his wolf instinct with her magical power to transport them both, required constant energy. Thalia's body screamed for rest. By the 5th, exhaustion threatened to drag her under. But Cassian was always there, his hand in hers, his energy supporting her via their connection. At the 6th and final breach point, they found not just shadow mages, but Lady Senna herself, surrounded by a dozen Ashbourne warriors. How touching, Senna sneered, her hands crackling with stolen shadow magic. The dying queen and her desperate alpha. But you're too late. Even if you close this breach, my army will overwhelm your wards within the hour. Thalia's heart leaped with relief when she recognized a familiar voice. Your army is about to have bigger problems, Ronan called out. He and his warriors must have intercepted the signal fire and doubled back to provide reinforcement. The Beta led a full contingent of Silvercrest warriors surrounding Senna's position. Lady Senna, by order of Alpha King Cassian, you're under arrest for treason, conspiracy, and attempted murder. Senna laughed, the sound edged with madness. You think you can arrest me? I have the full backing of Ashbourne. I have power you can't comprehend. I dash. She never finished the sentence. Lady Isadora stepped out from behind Senna's warriors, moving with deadly precision. Before anyone could react, she drove her blade between Senna's ribs, piercing her heart. The traitor's eyes widened in shock as she collapsed, blood spreading across the ground. Isadora stood over her, tears streaming down her cheeks. I couldn't let her destroy everything, Isadora said, her voice breaking. She threatened my family, said if I didn't cooperate, she'd have them killed. But I won't let her start a war. I won't let more people die because of her ambition. Cassian moved forward slowly, his hand still gripping Thalia's. Lady Isadora, you were part of this conspiracy. I was. Isadora dropped the blade, her hands shaking. I was foolish and frightened, and I let myself be manipulated. I don't expect forgiveness. I couldn't let it end like this. Not when I saw what you and Queen Thalia have. What I pretended to have with you. She met Thalia's eyes. I'm sorry. For everything. Before anyone could respond, the ground shook. In the distance, the Ashbourne army was retreating, their war drums falling silent. Without Senna's coordination, without the shadow mages corrupting the wards, they had no advantage. The invasion was over before it truly began. Thalia felt her knees buckle, but Cassian caught her, pulling her against his chest. Their shared exhaustion resonated between them, his relief, his overwhelming love. We did it, she whispered. You did it, he corrected. You saved us all. Again. We did it together, she insisted. That's what mates do. His smile was radiant despite his haggard appearance. Together, he agreed. From now on, everything is together. As dawn broke over Silvercrest, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Thalia leaned into her mate's embrace and finally allowed herself to believe it. She'd survived. They'd survived. And their story was just beginning. 3 days after the battle, the throne room of Silvercrest had never been so crowded. Every noble, every pack member who could fit, had gathered to witness what Cassian had called a moment of truth and reckoning. Thalia stood beside the throne, not behind it, as she had for 8 years, but beside it, wearing the midnight blue queen's gown and the ancient lunar witch circlet. For the first time since her wedding day, she didn't try to make herself invisible. Cassian's hand found hers, their fingers lacing together. She sensed his determination through their connection, his need to make this right publicly after so many years of private wrong. 8 years ago, Cassian began, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. I rejected my true mate based on a lie. I was poisoned with wolfsbane, corrupted into believing my wolf couldn't recognize her scent as mate. He paused, his jaw clenching. But the only mistake was mine. I rejected a woman who spent the next 8 years protecting this kingdom while I ignored her, who saved lives while I paraded my mistress through halls that should have been hers, who nearly died maintaining wards that kept every single person in this room safe from shadow creatures. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some looked ashamed, others shocked. A few, very few, looked vindicated, as if they'd suspected all along. Queen Thalia is a lunar witch, Cassian continued, and this time his voice rang with pride rather than accusation. She possesses magic our kind has feared for generations, and that magic is the only reason Silvercrest still stands, the only reason your children sleep safely at night. The only reason we're not all dead or enslaved by Ashbourne. He turned to face Thalia fully, and then, to the gasping shock of everyone present, the Alpha King of Silvercrest dropped to his knees before her. Cassian, Thalia breathed, what are you? 8 years. I rejected you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I called your scent wrong. I treated you like you were invisible. I denied you the honor and respect you deserved, both as my mate and as your own person. His hands gripped hers tighter. I can't undo those years. I can't give you back the time I stole, but I can do this. He looked up at her, his amber eyes blazing with love and determination. Thalia, my queen, my mate, my heart, I claim you. Before the moon goddess, before this pack, before every witness gathered here, I claim you as mine. Not because fate chose you, but because I choose you. Every day, for the rest of our lives, I choose you. Thalia's vision blurred. You already completed the bond. The bond is between us. This is for them. He gestured to the crowd. For 8 years, they thought you were nothing. A ghost queen who didn't matter. I need them to understand what you are to me. What you've always been, even when I was too blind to see it. He reached up and removed his own crown, the heavy golden circlet of the Alpha King, and held it out to her. Wear this with me. Not as my consort, but as my equal. Rule beside me, not behind me. Let everyone see what I should have shown them years ago. Cassian, her voice broke. I don't need a crown to know I'm worthy. I know, but I need this. I need to show everyone, that I understand what I have. His smile was tremulous. Please, Thalia, let me do this right. She took the crown from his hands and placed it on his head herself. Then she pulled him to his feet and kissed him, deep and fierce and full of promise. When they parted, the crown remained on his head, but Thalia's silver circlet blazed with new light, no longer just a lunar witch symbol, but a queen's crown in its own right, transformed by the bond between them. She turned to face the crowd, Cassian's hand still gripping hers. I am Thalia, lunar witch and queen of Silvercrest. For 8 years I protected this kingdom in silence. No more. From this day forward, I stand in the light. And anyone who has a problem with what I am is welcome to challenge me. The silence was deafening. Then, from the back of the room, someone began to clap. Marin, her weathered face streaming with tears, applauding with fierce pride. Ronan joined her. Then the guard Thalia had saved from shadow corruption. Then little Lyric and her mother. The applause spread like wildfire through the throne room. But not everyone was celebrating. From the left side of the hall, an older nobleman stepped forward, his face twisted with disgust. Lord Brennan, head of one of the most traditional wolf families. This is an outrage, Brennan declared, his voice cutting through the applause. Alpha King, with all respect, you're asking us to accept a lunar witch as our queen, to celebrate dark magic in our sacred halls. Our ancestors died fighting against. Your ancestors died because they were ignorant, Thalia interrupted, her voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. She stepped forward, releasing Cassian's hand. They feared what they didn't understand. They called lunar magic dark because it came from women they couldn't control. You dare, Brennan began. I dare because I've earned the right. Thalia's silver light began to shimmer softly around her hands, not threatening, but undeniably present. For 8 years, I've bled for this kingdom. I've poured my life force into wards that kept your children safe. I've healed your warriors, prevented invasions, and nearly died more times than I can count. And I did it all while you ignored me, dismissed me, treated me like I was nothing. She looked around the hall, meeting every eye. So yes, Lord Brennan, I am a lunar witch. My magic is ancient and powerful and absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. And if you can't accept that, if you'd rather cling to prejudice than acknowledge reality, then I suggest you leave, because I'm not hiding anymore. The silence that followed was absolute. Lord Brennan's face had gone purple with rage, but he seemed unable to form words. Finally, he spun on his heel and stormed from the throne room, taking 3 other nobles with him. Cassian moved to stand beside Thalia, his hand finding hers again. "Anyone else?" he asked quietly, his alpha authority unmistakable. "Anyone else want to challenge my mate's right to stand here?" No one moved. No one spoke. And slowly, starting with Marin and spreading through the crowd, people began to bow, not in fear, but in genuine respect. Thalia's vision blurred. She'd spent 8 years being invisible. Now she was truly seen. And instead of destruction, she'd found acceptance. Most of the pack, anyway, and that was enough. The applause resumed, becoming a roar of approval that shook the rafters. Through the bond, Thalia felt Cassian's fierce pride, his love, his absolute certainty that they were exactly where they were meant to be. Together. 3 months later. The lunar garden bloomed with flowers that only opened under moonlight, a gift from Thalia's magic, transforming a forgotten corner of the palace grounds into something extraordinary. She walked through it now, her hand resting on the gentle swell of her belly, marveling at how much had changed. Senna was dead, her conspiracy exposed. Lady Isadora had been given a choice: execution for treason or exile. She'd chosen exile, leaving for a distant kingdom where her family name might offer a fresh start. The Ashbourne territory had sued for peace once their king learned of Senna's manipulations, and negotiations for a genuine alliance were underway. But the best changes were personal. Thalia no longer lived in the lonely tower. She and Cassian shared the royal chambers now, waking tangled together each morning, the bond between them growing stronger with each passing day. He'd been true to his word. He treated her as an equal in all things, consulting her on kingdom matters, celebrating her magic rather than fearing it. And now they were going to have a child. A pup who would carry both wolf and witch blood, representing a new future for their kind. "There you are." Cassian's voice came from the garden entrance. He crossed to her with that effortless grace she'd always admired, pulling her into his arms. "Marin's been looking for you." "Something about prenatal herbs." "Marin worries too much," Thalia said, but she was smiling. The elder healer had become almost a mother figure, fussing over Thalia's health with fierce protectiveness. "She's not the only one who worries." Cassian's hand joined hers on her belly. "You're carrying precious cargo." "I'm carrying our child," Thalia corrected, "and I'm perfectly healthy. The bond sustains me. Your alpha energy and my magic balance each other beautifully." "Everything about us balances beautifully," he murmured, kissing her temple, "even though it took us 8 years to figure it out." Thalia turned in his arms, looking up at the face she'd loved for so long, first from afar, and now from within the most intimate connection 2 souls could share. "Do you ever regret it? Those years we lost?" "Every day," he said honestly, "but I also treasure what we have now even more, because of what we survived to get here." His hand cupped her cheek. "You made me a better man, Thalia. A better alpha. A better king. You taught me that strength isn't about dominance, it's about standing beside someone and lifting them up. You taught me that being worthy doesn't require permission from anyone else," she replied. "That my magic isn't something to hide, but something to celebrate." They stood in the moonlit garden, 2 souls bound by fate and choice, by suffering and triumph, by magic and love. Around them, the flowers bloomed brighter, responding to Thalia's contentment. In the distance, Thalia heard the sounds of the palace coming to life for the evening, servants preparing dinner, guards changing shifts, nobles gathering for court. She heard Lyric laughing as she played with the other pack children. One of Thalia's first reforms had been opening the training yards to all children, regardless of their parents' status. She heard Ronan and Marin arguing good-naturedly about training techniques. heard the heartbeat of a kingdom that had finally learned to embrace all forms of strength, not just the obvious ones. "Ready to go in?" Cassian asked. "The council is waiting." "Let them wait a moment longer." Thalia pulled him closer, savoring the peace, the belonging, the love that had been worth every moment of pain to achieve. "I want to remember this. How far we've come. How much we've survived." "We'll survive more," he promised. "Together. Always together." "Together," she agreed. And as they walked back toward the palace hand in hand, the moonlight followed them, a blessing from the goddess who had always known what they were meant to be. Not a rejected mate and her bitter king, but equals, partners, two halves of one extraordinary whole. For 8 years, Thalia had lived as his queen in silence. Now, she would reign beside him in power, in love, in voice. And their story, the story they would tell their children and grandchildren, would begin not with rejection, but with the moment an Alpha King fell to his knees and claimed the witch who had always been his salvation.